The morning sun barely touched the horizon when Emily Patterson pushed through the glass door of Rosie's Diner on Broadway in downtown Nashville. The familiar smell of coffee and bacon grease hit her immediately, a scent she'd grown to associate with exhaustion and fading dreams. At 19 years old, Emily had been working double shifts at the diner for nearly 8 months, ever since her father, Robert Patterson, died in a construction accident that left her mother, Linda, drowning in medical bills and mortgage payments. Emily tied her apron around her waist and grabbed the coffee pot, beginning her routine of filling cups for the early morning regulars. The diner was a hub for musicians, songwriters, and industry workers who stopped by before heading to recording studios or radio stations scattered throughout Music City. She listened to their conversations about record deals, upcoming shows, and the latest hits climbing the charts, feeling like an outsider looking through a window at a world she desperately wanted to enter. "Coffee, sweetheart," called out Walter Jenkins, a session guitarist who'd been coming to Rosie's for 15 years. His calloused fingers drummed against the counter as Emily poured his cup. "You look tired. Late night writing again?" Emily nodded, managing a small smile. "Finished a new song around 3 in the morning? Couldn't sleep until I got it down." Walter leaned back on his stool, studying her with kind eyes. "You know, I've been in this business long enough to spot real talent. You've got something special, kid. Don't let anyone tell you different." The encouragement warmed her, but Emily had heard similar words before, usually followed by rejection letters from publishers and producers. She'd sent out 17 songs in the past 6 months, each one returned with polite variations of the same message. "Women don't understand the authentic country sound." Or, "This would work better if sung by a male artist." Or, her personal favorite, "Perhaps you should focus on love songs rather than trying to write about life on the road." The morning rush came and went. Emily's feet ached in her worn sneakers as she cleared tables and refilled sugar dispensers. Around 11, her manager, Patricia Collins, called her into the small office at the back of the diner. Patricia was a stern woman in her 50s who ran the establishment with military precision. But she had a soft spot for Emily. "Got a call this morning from WKDF radio station," Patricia said, sitting behind her cluttered desk. "They need someone to help with their live broadcast tonight. Stage setup, running cables, that sort of thing. Pays $15 for 4 hours of work. I told them you might be interested." Emily's heart jumped. WKDF was one of the most popular country music stations in Nashville, broadcasting live shows every Friday night from their studio on Music Row. "Are you serious, Patricia? That would be amazing. You've been working yourself to the bone here, Emily. I can cover your evening shift tonight. Consider it a chance to get your foot in the door." Patricia handed her a piece of paper with an address and contact name. "Ask for Vincent Romano. He's the station manager. Don't be late." Emily practically floated through the rest of her shift, her exhaustion forgotten. This was the opportunity she'd been waiting for. A chance to be around real music professionals, to see how the industry worked from the inside. Maybe, just maybe, someone would listen to her songs. At 6:30 that evening, Emily stood outside the WKDF building, a 3-story brick structure with large windows and a neon sign that glowed against the darkening sky. She wore her best jeans and a clean white blouse, her long brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her guitar case hung over her shoulder. She never went anywhere without it, a habit her father had encouraged. Vincent Romano met her at the reception desk, a short, energetic man in his 40s, with graying hair and quick movements. "You must be Emily. Patricia spoke highly of you. We're broadcasting a showcase tonight with several new artists. Ever worked a live show before?" "No, sir, but I'm a fast learner," Emily replied, trying to sound confident. "Good enough. Follow me." Vincent led her through narrow hallways lined with gold records and photographs of country music legends. They emerged into a spacious studio with a small stage at one end, surrounded by microphone stands, amplifiers, and lighting equipment. About 50 chairs were arranged in rows facing the stage, and a glass-enclosed control booth overlooked everything from the back of the room. "Your job tonight is simple," Vincent explained. "Help the artists get set up between performances, make sure they have water, run any cables that Daniel needs, he's our sound engineer, and basically keep things moving smoothly. We've got 5 acts tonight, each performing 2 songs. Think you can handle that?" "Absolutely," Emily said, already scanning the stage and mentally organizing the equipment. Over the next hour, audience members began filtering in, filling the chairs with a mix of industry professionals, music fans, and what looked like friends and family of the performers. Emily worked quietly, learning the layout of the equipment and introducing herself to Daniel Foster, the sound engineer Vincent had mentioned. Daniel was a lean man in his early 50s, with silver hair and a weathered face that spoke of decades in the music business. He moved with the calm efficiency of someone who'd seen it all. When Emily offered to help run cables, he gave her an appraising look. "You know the difference between XLR and quarter-inch?" he asked. "XLR is for microphones, balanced signal. Quarter-inch for instruments can be balanced or unbalanced depending on whether it's TRS or TS." Emily answered without hesitation. Daniel's eyebrows rose. "Most kids your age don't know that. Where'd you learn?" "My dad was an electrician. He taught me about signals and circuits before I could ride a bike. I've been setting up my own equipment for years." A slow smile crossed Daniel's face. "Well then, this might actually be a good night. Come on, let me show you the board." As the show's start time approached, Emily found herself in the control booth with Daniel, learning the intricacies of the massive mixing console. He explained the signal flow, the role of each fader and knob, and how he balanced multiple instruments to create a cohesive sound. Emily absorbed everything like a sponge, asking intelligent questions that seemed to impress him further. "You play?" Daniel asked, nodding toward her guitar case propped in the corner. "Guitar and some piano. I also write songs." Emily hesitated before adding, "Or I try to anyway." "Trying is how everyone starts," Daniel said simply. "Don't let anyone make you feel small for trying." At 7:30, Vincent's voice came through the studio speakers, welcoming the audience to WKDF's Friday night showcase. The first act took the stage, a young male singer with a polished country pop sound that drew polite applause. Emily watched from the wings, noting how the performers interacted with the audience, how they handled the microphones, how they moved through their songs. The second and third acts followed similar patterns. Competent, professional, but lacking something Emily couldn't quite name. The audience remained attentive, but not particularly engaged. Then Vincent announced the fourth performer. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special treat tonight. She sang the national anthem at the National Finals Rodeo last December, caught the attention of Red Steagall himself, and just signed with Mercury Records. Please welcome Reba McEntire." The applause grew louder as a young woman with auburn hair stepped onto the stage. She wore a simple blue dress and cowboy boots, carrying herself with a mixture of confidence and nervousness. Reba was only a few years older than Emily, but there was something magnetic about her presence. When she smiled at the audience, it was genuine and warm, not the practiced grin Emily had seen from other performers. Emily watched from the side of the stage as Reba performed her first song, a traditional country ballad that showcased her powerful voice. The audience responded enthusiastically, several people leaning forward in their seats. Emily found herself captivated by the raw emotion in Reba's delivery, the way she inhabited the lyrics rather than just singing them. As Reba finished her first number and prepared for her second song, Emily noticed a disturbance near the stage entrance. 3 men had entered, walking with the self-important stride of industry executives. The one in the center was Leonard Hayes, a producer and talent manager whose reputation preceded him. Emily had heard stories at the diner about Leonard, how he controlled his artists with an iron fist, how he valued commercial success above artistic integrity, how he'd made and broken countless careers in Nashville. Leonard approached Vincent Romano during the applause, and Emily moved closer, sensing trouble. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but their voices carried. "Vincent, we need to talk about Miss McEntire's second song," Leonard said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I've looked at her set list, and this experimental piece she wants to perform is not appropriate for broadcast. I want her to sing Sweet Dreams instead. Simple, safe, something the audience knows." Vincent looked uncomfortable. "Leonard, this is her showcase. She should perform what represents her best." "What represents her best is what I decide represents her best," Leonard cut him off. "I'm investing significant money in developing Reba's career, and I won't have her reputation damaged by some amateur original song on live radio. Tell her to sing Sweet Dreams, or I pull her from the broadcast entirely." Emily's hands clenched into fists. She glanced at Reba, who was adjusting her microphone stand, unaware of the conversation happening 20 feet away. The young singer looked happy, energized by the positive response to her first song. Vincent sighed, recognizing a battle he couldn't win. "I'll tell her." As Vincent walked toward the stage, Leonard and his associates took seats in the front row, settling in with expressions of smug satisfaction. Emily felt a surge of anger at the unfairness of it all. Here was a talented artist being forced to compromise her vision before she'd even had a chance to establish herself. Vincent quietly informed Reba of the change during a commercial break. Emily watched Reba's face fall, saw the disappointment and frustration flash across her features before being replaced with professional composure. Reba nodded, agreeing to the substitution without argument. But Emily could see the light had gone out of her eyes. The broadcast resumed. Vincent announced that Reba would be performing a classic Patsy Cline number. The audience applauded, but Emily noticed Reba's shoulders slump slightly as she stepped up to the microphone. This wasn't what she wanted to sing. This wasn't her moment. Then disaster struck. The house band that had been accompanying all the performers suddenly began packing up their instruments. Emily watched in confusion as the bassist and drummer started disconnecting cables. Daniel's voice crackled through Emily's headset. Vincent had given her one so she could communicate with the booth. "We've got a problem. The band is walking out. Apparently, Leonard Hayes told them they'd get paid double their rate for tonight. But now he's refusing to pay because Reba changed her song. They're done." Emily's mind raced. The broadcast was live. The audience was waiting. Reba stood alone on stage, looking bewildered as the musicians abandoned their positions. Leonard sat in the front row with his arms crossed, a slight smile on his face, as if this was exactly what he'd intended. To humiliate Reba, to show her who held the power. Without thinking, Emily grabbed her guitar case and headed for the stage. Daniel's voice came through the headset. "Emily, what are you doing?" "Something crazy," she whispered back. Emily walked onto the stage, her heart pounding so hard she thought the audience might hear it. Reba turned, surprise evident on her face, as this stranger in jeans and a white blouse approached with a guitar. "Hi, I'm Emily. I work here tonight," Emily said quickly, keeping her voice low so the audience wouldn't hear. "I know this is insane, but I can play. I know Sweet Dreams. I've played it 100 times. Let me help you." Reba's eyes widened. For a moment, Emily thought she would refuse, that this impulsive gesture would end in humiliation for both of them. But then Reba glanced at Leonard Hayes in the front row, at his smug expression, and something shifted in her features. Determination replaced uncertainty. "Can you play anything else?" Reba asked quietly. "Because I don't want to sing sweet dreams. I want to sing my song, the one I wrote, the one they told me not to perform." Emily's breath caught. "What kind of song is it?" "It's called Desert Highway. It's about leaving home, chasing dreams, feeling alone, but knowing you can't turn back. It's honest, it's real, and it's mine." Reba's voice carried quiet intensity, but it needs guitar, and it needs someone who understands what it means to fight for something everyone says you can't have. The words hit Emily like a physical force. This was exactly the conversation she'd wanted to have with someone in the music industry. Not about playing it safe, but about creating something authentic, something that mattered. She looked into Reba's eyes and saw a reflection of her own desperate hunger to be heard. "Tell me the key and the progression," Emily said. "I'll follow you." Vincent Romano's voice came through the speakers, covering the awkward silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. Please bear with us for just a moment." Backstage, Emily could see Vincent through the control booth window, looking panicked. Daniel was beside him, but instead of panic, Daniel's face showed something else. Curiosity? Maybe even approval. He adjusted something on the mixing board, and his voice came through Emily's headset. I'm trusting you here. I'll ride the faders to balance you two. Just play like you mean it." Reba quickly whispered the chord progression to Emily, M, F, C, G, with a bridge that modulated to DM. Nothing complicated, but the simplicity would put the focus on the vocals and the emotion. Emily tuned her guitar quickly, her fingers moving on autopilot while her mind processed what was about to happen. She was about to perform on live radio in front of industry professionals, backing an artist signed to a major label, playing a song she'd never heard before. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt alive. "We're good," Emily called to Vincent, giving him a thumbs up. Reba positioned herself at the center microphone, and Emily stood slightly behind and to the side, her guitar ready. Vincent's voice returned to the broadcast. "Folks, we have a special treat for you tonight. Miss McEntire will be performing an original composition titled Desert Highway, accompanied by our very own stage assistant, Emily Patterson. This is a WKDF exclusive premiere. Reba, whenever you're ready." In the front row, Leonard Hayes sat forward, his face reddening with anger. He started to stand, but one of his associates put a hand on his arm, whispering urgently. Leonard remained seated, but his expression promised consequences. Emily pushed that from her mind and focused on Reba, watching for the signal to begin. Reba closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath, then opened them and nodded. Emily began playing, letting the chords ring out clear and true. The studio's acoustics were excellent, and Daniel had the levels perfect. Her guitar filled the space without overwhelming it. Then Reba started singing, and Emily understood why Red Steagall had brought her to Nashville. The song told the story of a young woman leaving her small town, driving alone through the night on desert highways, watching city lights fade in the rearview mirror. The lyrics spoke of family left behind, dreams that felt impossible, and the terrifying freedom of choosing your own path. Reba's voice carried every ounce of emotion the words demanded: vulnerability, strength, fear, and defiant hope. Emily found herself not just playing the chords, but responding to Reba's vocals, adding small flourishes between verses, letting the guitar speak in the empty spaces. She'd never performed with someone she was so immediately in sync with. It was like they'd rehearsed for weeks instead of having 30 seconds to prepare. The audience sat motionless, completely absorbed. Emily noticed several people with tears in their eyes. Even Leonard Hayes, despite his obvious anger, couldn't deny the power of what was happening on stage. As the song built toward its climax, Emily felt something click into place. This was why she wrote music, why she struggled and scraped by and refused to give up. Not for the approval of producers like Leonard Hayes, but for moments like this, when a song connected with people, when honesty and emotion transcended all the industry politics and commercial calculations. Reba sang the final line, "I'm not turning back. I'm not slowing down. This desert highway leads to something I ain't found." And Emily let the last chord hang in the air before gently releasing it. Silence filled the studio for a heartbeat, 2 heartbeats, 3. Then the audience erupted. People jumped to their feet, applauding and cheering with genuine enthusiasm. Emily saw seasoned music industry professionals wiping their eyes, saw Vincent Romano grinning from ear to ear in the control booth, saw Daniel giving her a subtle nod of approval through the window. Reba turned to Emily, her eyes shining, and mouthed, "Thank you." Emily nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. They'd done it. They'd taken a risk, defied the people who said, "Play it safe," and created something real. Vincent's voice came through the speakers, riding the wave of applause. "Ladies and gentlemen, Reba McEntire and Emily Patterson. If that's not the sound of authentic country music, I don't know what is. Thank you both for that incredible performance." As the applause continued, Emily saw Leonard Hayes stand and walk toward the exit, his face a mask of controlled fury. His associates followed, and Emily heard him hiss at Vincent as he passed. "This isn't over. That girl just ended whatever career she thought she might have in this town." The words should have frightened Emily, but she was still riding the high of the performance, still feeling the connection she'd made with Reba and the audience. She'd deal with the consequences tomorrow. Tonight, she'd stood on stage and played her heart out. And it had mattered. After the broadcast ended and the final performer took the stage, Reba found Emily backstage. Up close, the singer was petite, but carried herself with quiet strength. She grabbed Emily's hands, squeezing them tightly. "What you did out there? That took guts. I don't even know you. And you risked everything to help me sing my song. Why?" Emily thought about the question, about all the rejection letters, all the times she'd been told she wasn't good enough or didn't fit the mold. Because someone should get to sing what they actually want to sing. Because playing it safe is killing what makes music special. Because, I don't know, it felt like the right thing to do. Reba laughed, a bright, genuine sound. "Well, you just made an enemy of one of the most powerful producers in Nashville. Leonard Hayes doesn't forget, and he doesn't forgive." "Then I'm in good company," Emily replied, matching her smile. "Because you just made the same enemy." "Yeah, but I have a record contract and Red Stiegel in my corner. What do you have?" Emily looked down at her scuffed guitar case. A lot of debt, a job at a diner, and apparently 17 songs that nobody wants. But after tonight, I don't care. That feeling on stage? That's why I'm here. Reba studied her for a long moment. "Can I hear one of your songs?" Emily blinked in surprise. "What? Now? Why not? The show's still going, nobody's paying attention to us back here, and I want to know if you can write as well as you can play." With shaking hands, Emily pulled out her guitar and sat on an equipment case. She played Backroads and Broken Dreams, a song she'd written about her father, about working-class struggles and the cost of ambition. Her voice wasn't as powerful as Reba's, but it carried honesty and emotion. When she finished, Reba was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That's better than half the songs my label wants me to record. Emily Patterson, I think we should stay in touch. I have a feeling we're both going to need allies in this business." They exchanged phone numbers, Reba was staying at a small apartment near Music Row while working with Mercury Records. As they talked, Daniel Foster approached, his expression serious. "Emily, can I speak with you privately for a minute?" Emily's stomach dropped. She'd been so caught up in the moment that she'd forgotten she was supposed to be working, not performing. "Daniel, I'm so sorry. I know that wasn't my place. He held up a hand, cutting her off. "You just made the best radio this station has broadcast in 6 months. Vincent is over the moon. The phone lines lit up after your performance with Reba. People want to know who you are, where they can hear more." Emily stared at him, unable to process the words. What? "But we need to talk about Leonard Hayes." Daniel's expression turned grave. "He meant what he said about ending your career. Leonard has connections throughout this industry. He can make it very hard for you to get work, to get heard, to get taken seriously. You humiliated him tonight, and he's not the type to let that slide." The weight of reality crashed down on Emily's shoulders. "I didn't mean to humiliate anyone. I just wanted to help Reba." "I know. And what you did was brave and right. But brave and right don't always protect you from consequences." Daniel paused, seeming to make a decision. "Look, I've been in this business for 30 years. I've seen a lot of talented people get crushed by the machine. I've also seen a few fighters who refused to be crushed. I think you might be one of the fighters, but you're going to need help." "What kind of help?" "The kind that comes from people who believe in you, who are willing to stand up to people like Leonard Hayes. I can't promise much. I'm just a sound engineer, not a producer or manager. But I know people, and I know talent when I hear it. Give me a few days to make some calls." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. After so many rejections, so many closed doors, here was someone actually offering to help. "Daniel, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet. Let me see what I can do. In the meantime, keep your head down, keep writing, and don't let Leonard intimidate you into giving up. Can you do that?" Emily nodded, finding her voice. "Yes. Absolutely yes." As Daniel walked away, Reba put a hand on Emily's shoulder. "Looks like we both have interesting days ahead of us. Leonard is going to try to punish me too, probably by shelving my album or forcing me to record songs I hate. But I'm not backing down. Are you?" Emily thought about her father, about the dreams he'd encouraged her to chase, about the guitar he'd bought her with money he could barely spare. She thought about that feeling on stage, that connection with an audience, that moment when music stopped being a commodity and became something transcendent. "Not a chance," Emily said firmly. "Whatever happens next, I'm ready for it." They shook hands, two young women united by talent, ambition, and a refusal to let powerful men dictate their artistic voices. Neither of them knew just how difficult the coming days would be, or how their alliance would be tested. But in that moment, backstage at a Nashville radio station, they'd found something rare in the cutthroat music industry: genuine friendship and mutual respect. The final performer finished his set, and the audience began filing out. Emily helped pack up equipment, her mind racing with everything that had happened. Patricia Collins had given her this opportunity, thinking it would just be a chance to make $15 and see how the industry worked. Instead, Emily had performed on live radio, gained an ally in Reba McEntire, made an enemy of Leonard Hayes, and possibly changed the trajectory of her entire life. As she carried her guitar case out into the cool Nashville night, Emily allowed herself a moment of pure hope. Maybe, just maybe, she had a chance after all. The weekend passed in a blur of excitement and anxiety. Emily picked up extra shifts at Rosie's Diner, needing the money, but also craving the routine normalcy. Every time the door chimed, she half expected Leonard Hayes to walk in with lawyers or thugs to make good on his threats. But Saturday and Sunday came and went without incident, and Emily began to wonder if maybe his anger had been all bluster. Monday morning shattered that illusion. Emily arrived at the diner at 5:30 to prep for the breakfast rush. Patricia Collins was already there, which was unusual. The older woman's face was tight with concern. "Emily, we need to talk before the morning crew arrives." Emily's stomach knotted. "What's wrong?" Patricia handed her a business card. Heavy stock, embossed letters reading Leonard Hayes Productions. On the back, someone had written a phone number and a message. "Have your employee call me by noon today, or there will be consequences for your establishment." "He came in yesterday afternoon," Patricia explained, her voice tight. "Sat at the counter, ordered coffee, and asked about you. How long you'd worked here, whether you had family, what your situation was. I didn't like his tone, so I told him I didn't discuss my employees with strangers. That's when he left this card and made it very clear that he could cause problems for my business." Emily felt cold fury wash over her. It was one thing to threaten her career. She'd chosen to get involved. But dragging Patricia and the diner into this? That was crossing a line. "Patricia, I'm so sorry. I never meant to bring trouble to you. This is about something that happened at WKDF on Friday night. I'll fix it." "What happened?" Patricia asked, her voice softening. Emily explained the entire situation. The abandoned band, the decision to play for Reba, Leonard's fury at being defied. Patricia listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from concern to something that looked almost like pride. "So you stood up to a bully and helped someone sing her own song," Patricia said when Emily finished. "Sounds like something your father would have done." The comparison to her dad brought tears to Emily's eyes. "I didn't think about the consequences. I just reacted. Sometimes that's when we're most true to ourselves." Patricia took the business card back. "I'll call this Hayes character and tell him exactly what he can do with his threats. I've been running this diner for 23 years, and I'm not about to be intimidated by some music industry hotshot." "No, let me handle it," Emily insisted. "This is my mess. I'll call him." She used the phone in Patricia's office, her hands trembling slightly as she dialed. Leonard Hayes answered on the second ring, his voice smooth and professional. "Miss Patterson, I'm glad you decided to be reasonable." "What do you want?" Emily asked, skipping the pleasantries. "I want you to understand something about how this industry works. People like me invest significant time and money in developing artists. We make calculated decisions about how to present them to the public, how to build their careers, how to maximize their potential. When someone interferes with those plans, there are consequences. I didn't interfere with anything. I helped a singer perform her own song when her band walked out. If that's interference, then maybe your plans needed interfering with." Leonard's voice hardened. "You have spirit. I'll give you that. Unfortunately, spirit without power is just noise. I've made some calls over the weekend, Miss Patterson. I've spoken with every major label, every significant publisher, every studio that matters in Nashville. Your name is now on a list of unreliable troublemakers. No one will sign you. No one will record your songs. And no one will give you the time of day." Emily's grip tightened on the phone. "That's illegal. You can't blacklist someone for—" "I'm not blacklisting anyone," Leonard cut her off smoothly. "I'm simply sharing information about your unprofessional behavior with colleagues. What they choose to do with that information is their business. Now, I'm calling because I'm willing to offer you a way out of this situation." "What kind of way out?" "You will call Vincent Romano at WKDF and tell him that you acted impulsively on Friday night, that you regret overshadowing Miss McEntire's performance with your own ambitions, and that you take full responsibility for the unprofessional atmosphere. You will make it clear that Reba had nothing to do with the decision to change songs, that it was all your idea, your fault. Do this publicly, and I'll make some follow-up calls letting people know you've learned your lesson. You want me to lie and throw Reba under the bus to save myself? I want you to accept reality. Reba has a contract and resources. You have nothing. This isn't personal, Miss Patterson. It's business. Emily thought about her 17 rejection letters, about the bills piling up at home, about how desperately she needed any opportunity to advance her music career. Leonard was offering her an out. Take all the blame, apologize publicly, and maybe the blacklist would be lifted. No, she said quietly. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not apologizing for helping someone, and I'm not lying to protect your ego. Do whatever you want, Mr. Hayes. But I'm not backing down. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds. When Leonard finally spoke, his voice was ice. You're making a terrible mistake. Don't say I didn't warn you. The line went dead. Emily sat in Patricia's office, her heart racing, wondering if she'd just destroyed her future with one phone call. But beneath the fear was something else. A fierce satisfaction that she hadn't compromised, hadn't betrayed Reba or herself. The morning shift was busy, giving Emily little time to dwell on the conversation. Around 10 o'clock, Daniel Foster walked through the diner door, scanning the room until he spotted Emily. She grabbed the coffee pot and met him at a booth near the back. "Daniel, what are you doing here?" "I heard about Leonard's weekend calls," he said grimly. "Word travels fast in this town. Emily, he's serious about this. He's contacted at least a dozen major players, telling them not to work with you." "I know. He called this morning and offered me a deal. Blame everything on myself, apologize publicly, and he'll back off." And I told him no. Daniel studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Good. Because the people who cave to Leonard Hayes never get their dignity back. But you need to understand what you're up against. He has real power, Emily. He can keep you out of studios, off the radio, away from anyone who might give you a shot. So, what do I do? Just give up?" "Hell no. You fight smarter." Daniel leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I made those calls I mentioned Friday night. I reached out to some people who don't particularly like Leonard Hayes. People who value talent over politics. One of them is Claire Donovan. She's a music journalist for the Nashville Chronicle, and she's been trying to write a story about Leonard's strong-arm tactics for months. She needs someone willing to go on record. You want me to talk to a reporter about Leonard? I want you to tell the truth about what happened Friday night, about the threats he's made. Claire's a good journalist. She won't print anything without corroborating evidence. But if she can establish a pattern of behavior, if other people start coming forward, maybe Leonard's power starts to crack." Emily considered this. Going to the press felt like escalation, like declaring all-out war. But Leonard had already declared war by threatening Patricia's diner, by calling every label and publisher in Nashville. "Set up the meeting," Emily said. "I'll talk to her." Daniel smiled. "There's that fighter I saw on Friday. Claire can meet you tomorrow afternoon if you're free. There's something else, too. I talked to a friend who runs a small independent label called Heartwood Records. They specialize in traditional country, the real stuff, not the pop crossover garbage. The owner's name is Russell Wade. He's interested in hearing your songs." Emily's breath caught. "Seriously? Russell doesn't care about Leonard Hayes' blacklist. He operates outside the major label ecosystem, works with artists who don't fit the commercial mold. I played him the tape of Desert Highway from Friday night. Yeah, I recorded it. And he wants to meet you. No promises, but it's a shot." Hope surged through Emily's chest. Daniel, I don't know how to thank you. Thank me by not giving up. Thank me by writing songs that matter. And maybe buy me coffee sometime." He slid a piece of paper across the table with Claire Donovan's information and Russell Wade's contact details. "The appointment with Russell is Wednesday afternoon. Don't be late." After Daniel left, Emily worked the rest of her shift in a daze. The fear from Leonard's threats was still there, but it was matched now by cautious optimism. She wasn't alone in this fight. People like Daniel, like Reba, like Patricia, they were willing to stand with her. That evening, Emily called the number Reba had given her. The singer answered on the third ring, sounding tired. "Reba, it's Emily Patterson. Is this a bad time?" "Emily! No, it's perfect timing, actually. I was just thinking about you. How are you holding up?" "I've had better weeks. Leonard Hayes has been making good on his threats. He tried to intimidate my boss at the diner. And apparently, he's been telling every label in Nashville not to work with me." Reba sighed heavily. "Yeah, he's been coming after me, too. My label is reconsidering the direction of my album. They want me to record a bunch of covers instead of my original material. Leonard's been whispering in their ears that I'm difficult to work with, that I don't listen to professional guidance. I'm so sorry, Reba. If I hadn't gotten involved—" "Don't you dare apologize," Reba interrupted firmly. "What happened Friday night was the first time since signing my contract that I felt like an artist instead of a product. Leonard would have found a way to control me regardless. At least now I know who I'm dealing with. And I know I have a friend who'll stand up with me." They talked for nearly an hour, sharing their experiences with Leonard's retaliation and strategizing about how to move forward. Reba was planning to push back against her label's demands, to insist on recording at least some of her original songs. Emily told her about the upcoming meetings with Claire Donovan and Russell Wade. "Be careful with the journalist," Reba warned. "Once something's in print, you can't take it back. Make sure you're ready for that level of public exposure." "I'm ready," Emily said, surprised to find she meant it. "Leonard wants to fight dirty? Fine. But the truth is on our side." The next afternoon, Emily met Claire Donovan at a quiet coffee shop off Music Row. The journalist was in her mid-30s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that immediately put Emily at ease. Claire ordered them both coffee and pulled out a notebook. "Daniel Foster speaks very highly of you," Claire began. "He said you witnessed Leonard Hayes attempting to manipulate a live broadcast and then threatening your career when you intervened. Is that accurate?" Emily nodded and walked Claire through everything. The band walking out, Leonard's demand that Reba sing a cover instead of her original song, the performance itself, and the subsequent threats. Claire took detailed notes, asking clarifying questions and requesting specific dates and times. "This matches a pattern I've been documenting for 8 months," Claire said. "Leonard Hayes has been using his position to control artists, to intimidate anyone who questions his judgment, and to blacklist people who don't fall in line. But everyone's been too afraid to go on record. Are you willing to have your name attached to these allegations?" Emily thought about her father, about the values he'd instilled in her. "Yes, I'm willing. There could be consequences. Leonard will deny everything, and his lawyers might come after you for defamation. Let them. Everything I'm saying is true." Claire smiled grimly. "Good. I have 2 other sources willing to talk. A session musician Leonard blacklisted last year, and a songwriter he stole credit from. With your testimony, I think I finally have enough for the story. It'll run in next Sunday's paper." As Emily left the coffee shop, she felt both exhilarated and terrified. In 5 days, the entire Nashville music community would read about Leonard Hayes' behavior, and her name would be right there in the middle of it. There was no turning back now. Wednesday afternoon arrived too quickly. Emily took the bus to an older part of Nashville where Heartwood Records operated out of a converted warehouse. The building was weathered but sturdy, with a hand-painted sign above the door. Inside, the walls were covered with photographs of bluegrass legends, folk artists, and traditional country singers, the kind of musicians who valued authenticity over chart positions. Russell Wade met her in the small lobby, a man in his 60s with a gray beard and kind eyes. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt, looking more like a farmer than a record executive. "Miss Patterson, thank you for coming. Daniel played me your performance from last Friday. That was something special." "Thank you, Mr. Wade. It means a lot to hear that. Call me Russell. Come on back to the studio. I want to hear more of your songs." For the next 2 hours, Emily played and sang for Russell, sharing 7 of her 17 compositions. He listened intently, occasionally asking about her influences or the stories behind the lyrics. Unlike the major label executives who'd rejected her work, Russell seemed genuinely interested in the emotional truth of the songs rather than their commercial potential. "You write like someone who's lived more than most 19-year-olds, Russell observed. "Where does that come from?" Emily told him about her father's death, about working at the diner to help her mother, about watching dreams get deferred or destroyed by practical necessity. "I guess I write what I know," she concluded. "Life isn't always pretty or simple, and I don't see why songs should pretend it is." Russell nodded thoughtfully. "The industry right now wants everything polished and accessible. Country music is moving toward pop, losing the rough edges that made it real. But there's still an audience for authenticity, for songs that don't talk down to people or try to be something they're not. I think your music fits that space." "Does that mean?" "It means I want to make you an offer." Heartwood is a small label, Emily. We can't compete with Mercury or RCA in terms of money or promotion. But we can offer you creative control. We can record your original songs the way you want them recorded. And we can connect you with an audience that still cares about honest country music. I'm prepared to offer you a 3-album deal with a modest advance. It won't make you rich, but it's a start. Emily felt tears blur her vision. After all the rejection, after being told her songs weren't commercial enough, weren't what the industry wanted, here was someone actually offering her a chance. "Yes," she managed to say. "Yes, absolutely yes." They shook hands, and Russell pulled out a contract. "Take this home. Have someone look it over. If you're comfortable with the terms, sign it and bring it back next week. We'll start recording your first album in January." Emily left Heartwood Records feeling like she was floating. She had a record deal. A real, actual record deal with a label that valued her songwriting. It wasn't a major label, and the money wouldn't solve all her family's problems, but it was a beginning. A validation that she'd been right to keep fighting, to keep believing in her music. She couldn't wait to tell Reba, to tell Daniel, to tell her mother that something good had finally come from all the struggle. As she rode the bus home through the Nashville streets, Emily allowed herself to imagine a future where she made a living doing what she loved, where her songs reached people and mattered. But in the back of her mind, she knew that Leonard Hayes wouldn't take this development well. The article from Claire Donovan would run in 4 days, and Emily's deal with Heartwood would become public knowledge. The war she'd started on Friday night was about to escalate, and she needed to be ready for whatever came next. For now, though, she let herself enjoy this moment of pure triumph. Sunday morning arrived with unseasonably cold weather. Emily woke early in the small house she shared with her mother, pulling on a sweater against the chill. Linda Patterson was already in the kitchen making coffee, her worn hands moving through the familiar motions. Since Robert's death, she'd aged noticeably, the stress of widowhood and financial worry etching new lines around her eyes. "You're up early for a Sunday," Linda observed, pouring Emily a cup. Couldn't sleep? The article comes out today, Emily admitted. The one I told you about, in the Nashville Chronicle. Linda's expression tightened with worry. Are you sure about this, sweetheart? Going public against this Hayes man? You said yourself he has a lot of power. I'm sure, Mom. What he's doing isn't right, and somebody has to say something. Besides, I'm not alone in this anymore. I have the record deal with Heartwood. I have people supporting me. It's going to be okay. Emily wished she felt as confident as she sounded. The truth was, she'd barely slept, imagining all the ways this could go wrong. But there was no backing out now. The article was already printed, already being delivered to newsstands and doorsteps across Nashville. At 10 o'clock, Emily walked to the corner drugstore and bought a copy of the Nashville Chronicle. Claire Donovan's article was on the front page of the Arts and Entertainment section. The headline, bold and uncompromising, Power and Intimidation. How one producer controls Nashville's rising stars. Emily's hands shook as she read. Claire had done excellent work, weaving together testimony from Emily, the blacklisted session musician, and the songwriter whose credit had been stolen. The article painted a damning picture of Leonard Hayes as a man who used his industry connections to manipulate artists, silence criticism, and destroy anyone who challenged his authority. Emily's name appeared multiple times, along with detailed descriptions of the Friday night broadcast incident. Claire had even included a quote from Vincent Romano at WKDF, confirming that Leonard had attempted to dictate Reba's setlist and had threatened consequences after the performance. Reba McEntire was mentioned as well, though Claire had noted that the singer declined to comment due to contractual obligations with Mercury Records. That was smart. Reba was already dealing with label pressure, and openly criticizing Leonard could have severe professional consequences. Emily bought 3 more copies of the paper and headed to Rosie's Diner, where Patricia had agreed to let her use the office phone for what would likely be a busy day. She wasn't wrong. Within an hour of the diner opening, Emily had received 5 phone calls, 2 from reporters wanting follow-up interviews, 1 from a lawyer offering pro bono services if Leonard sued for defamation, 1 from an unfamiliar country singer thanking her for speaking out, and 1 from Daniel Foster. "Have you seen it?" Daniel asked excitedly. "Emily, this is huge. Claire did an incredible job. People are talking about this all over town." "Is that good or bad?" Emily asked nervously. "Mostly good. The Chronicle has serious credibility. Claire doesn't write hit pieces. She writes investigation. People will take this seriously. Leonard's going to have a much harder time controlling the narrative now." Daniel was right. Throughout the day, Emily heard snippets of conversation from diner customers discussing the article. The consensus seemed to be shock and anger at Leonard's tactics, mixed with respect for the people who'd spoken out. Several industry professionals stopped by Rosie's specifically to tell Emily they supported her courage. But not everyone was pleased. Around 2 in the afternoon, a black Lincoln pulled up outside the diner, and Leonard Hayes himself walked through the door. Patricia immediately positioned herself between Leonard and Emily, her expression fierce. "You're not welcome here, Mr. Hayes. Leave now, or I'm calling the police." Leonard raised his hands in a placating gesture, his smile cold. "I'm just here for a cup of coffee and a conversation. Surely you can't object to that." "I object to you harassing my employee. Out. Now." For a moment, Emily thought Leonard would push back, but he seemed to realize that causing a scene would only validate the article's claims. He turned to Emily instead, his voice carrying across the quiet diner. "You've made a serious enemy, Miss Patterson. I hope you understand that. This article is nothing but lies and manipulation, and my lawyers will be filing lawsuits by tomorrow morning. You'll spend whatever pittance you have on legal fees, and when it's all over, you'll be exactly where you started. Nowhere." Emily forced herself to meet his gaze steadily. "The article is the truth, Mr. Hayes. If you want to sue me for telling the truth, go ahead. But people know now. They know what you've been doing. And they know you're not untouchable." Leonard's smile widened, but there was no humor in it. "We'll see about that." He looked around the diner at the watching customers. "Anyone who associates with this girl should know they're making a choice. You're either with me, or you're against me. There's no middle ground." He walked out, and the diner erupted in conversation the moment the door closed. Patricia hugged Emily tightly. "That man is dangerous, honey. Please, be careful." Emily nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. She'd just stood up to Leonard Hayes face to face, and while it had been terrifying, it had also been empowering. She wasn't the scared 19-year-old who'd walked into WKDF 10 days ago. She was someone willing to fight for what was right. That evening, Reba called, her voice excited. "Emily, have you been listening to the radio? WKDF has been playing Desert Highway all day. Listeners have been calling in requesting it. Vincent Romano told me it's the most requested song they've had in months." "Are you serious?" Emily asked, stunned. "Completely serious. And get this, Mercury Records called me today. They want to include Desert Highway on my album after all. Apparently, the public response has been so strong that even Leonard can't argue against it. We did it, Emily. We actually did it." Emily laughed, relief and joy washing over her. After all the threats and intimidation, something good had emerged. Reba's song would be heard, and Emily had played a part in making that happen. "There's more," Reba continued. "I've been talking with other artists signed to labels Leonard works with. 3 of them are willing to speak with Claire Donovan about their experiences." The article opened the floodgates. People aren't as afraid anymore. Over the next few days, the story continued to develop. Claire wrote a follow-up piece featuring the new testimonies, further establishing the pattern of Leonard's behavior. Several industry figures publicly distanced themselves from him, and 2 labels announced they were reviewing their relationships with Leonard Hayes Productions. Leonard did file a defamation lawsuit against Emily, Claire Donovan, and the Nashville Chronicle. But the lawyer who'd offered pro bono services was true to his word. Gregory Sullivan, a respected attorney who'd had his own run-ins with industry corruption, took Emily's case. He assured her that truth was an absolute defense against defamation, and that Leonard would have a very difficult time proving his claims. "He's suing to intimidate you, not because he expects to win," Gregory explained. "But we'll fight it, and we'll make him regret using the courts as a weapon." Meanwhile, Russell Wade at Heartwood Records moved forward with plans for Emily's album. They scheduled studio time for January, and Russell connected Emily with session musicians who were excited to work on authentic traditional country material. For the first time in her life, Emily felt like a real recording artist, not just a dreamer waiting tables. The support wasn't universal, of course. Some of Leonard's allies in the industry criticized Emily publicly, calling her an opportunist trying to build a career on controversy. A few radio stations refused to play anything associated with her name, but the pushback felt manageable compared to the support she was receiving. 3 weeks after the article's publication, Emily received an unexpected call at the diner. The voice on the other end was familiar, but hard to place at first. "Miss Patterson, this is Margaret Chen. I'm a talent coordinator for the Grand Ole Opry." Emily's heart stopped. The Grand Ole Opry was the pinnacle of country music achievement, a legendary institution that had showcased the greatest artists in the genre's history. "I'm calling because we've been following the recent news stories, and we've heard the recording of Desert Highway from WKDF. We were impressed by your guitar work and your courage in standing up for artistic integrity. We'd like to invite you to perform as part of our New Faces Showcase next month. It would be a 15-minute set, 3 songs. Are you interested?" Emily couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The Grand Ole Opry. They wanted her to perform at the Grand Ole Opry. "Yes," she managed to choke out. "Yes, I'm very interested." Margaret Chen provided details about rehearsal times and technical requirements. After hanging up, Emily stood frozen in Patricia's office, trying to process what had just happened. The Grand Ole Opry. In 4 weeks, she would stand on the same stage that had hosted Patsy Cline, Hank Williams, and countless legends. She immediately called Reba to share the news. The singer screamed with excitement. "Emily, that's incredible! The Opry! Do you know how many artists spend their entire careers hoping for an invitation like that? I can't believe it's real," Emily admitted. "A month ago, I was just a waitress with a guitar. Now I have a record deal and an Opry performance. How did this happen so fast?" "It happened because you were brave enough to take a risk when it mattered," Reba said firmly. "And because you're talented. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve this." Over the following weeks, Emily prepared obsessively for the Opry performance. She selected 3 songs that showcased her range as a songwriter. Backroads and Broken Dreams, about her father. Waiting Tables, Chasing Dreams, about her life in Nashville. And a new composition called Standing Tall, that she'd written about refusing to be intimidated. Daniel Foster offered to help her rehearse, using the WKDF studio during off hours. Russell Wade provided feedback on arrangements, and even Reba stopped by one rehearsal to offer encouragement and vocal coaching tips. The night before the performance, Emily barely slept. She lay in bed thinking about her father, wishing he could be there to see this moment. Robert Patterson had believed in her talent when she was just a kid, learning 3-chord songs. He'd worked overtime to buy her a quality guitar, had driven her to every open mic night in their small Oklahoma hometown, had told her she had the ability to make it in Nashville. "I hope I'm making you proud, Dad," she whispered into the darkness. The day of the Opry performance arrived cold and clear. Emily wore a simple dress her mother had altered from one of her own formal outfits. Dark green with embroidered details, paired with the cowboy boots Emily had saved 3 months to afford. She looked like a real country artist, not a diner waitress pretending to be one. Linda Patterson accompanied her to the Ryman Auditorium, the historic venue that housed the Grand Ole Opry. Her mother's eyes filled with tears as they stood outside the brick building. "Your father would be so proud," Linda said, echoing Emily's thoughts from the night before. "I'm so proud. No matter what happens from here, you've already accomplished something amazing." Backstage at the Ryman, Emily met the other performers in the New Faces Showcase. 3 singers who all looked as nervous and excited as she felt. They wished each other luck, united by the understanding that this was a life-changing opportunity for all of them. Margaret Chen gave Emily a quick orientation, showing her where to enter and exit the stage, explaining the monitor system, and introducing her to the house band who would accompany her. Emily had provided charts for her songs in advance, and the musicians had rehearsed them that afternoon. "You'll be the 3rd performer tonight," Margaret explained. "After the 2nd act finishes, you'll have about 90 seconds to get in position. Any questions?" "Just one," Emily said. "Is it normal to feel like you might pass out from nerves?" Margaret smiled kindly. "Completely normal. But the moment you start playing, the nerves will transform into energy. Trust yourself." Emily watched the first 2 performers from the wings, studying how they commanded the stage, how they connected with the audience. The Ryman was filled with country music fans who knew quality when they heard it. This wasn't a casual audience, but people who genuinely loved the genre and its traditions. Then Margaret was guiding her toward the stage entrance, and the announcer's voice was booming through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Grand Ole Opry stage, making her debut tonight, Miss Emily Patterson." Emily walked into the lights, her guitar slung over her shoulder, and the applause washed over her like a wave. The stage was smaller than she'd imagined. Worn wooden floorboards that countless legends had walked. She approached the microphone at center stage, adjusting it to her height with shaking hands. "Thank you so much for having me," she said, her voice steadier than she expected. "I'm honored to be here at the Ryman. This first song is called Backroads and Broken Dreams, and it's about my father, who taught me that honest work and honest music both require the same thing: showing up every day and giving it everything you've got." She nodded to the band, counted off the tempo, and began playing. The first notes rang out clear and true, and just as Margaret Chen had predicted, Emily's nerves transformed into focused energy. She poured everything into the performance. Every emotion, every memory, every ounce of determination that had brought her to this moment. The audience responded immediately, leaning forward in their seats, completely engaged. When Emily finished the first song, the applause was thunderous and genuine. She moved into "Waiting Tables, Chasing Dreams," which drew knowing laughs from the crowd at the lyrics about difficult customers and stolen tips. The song resonated with anyone who'd ever worked a difficult job while pursuing an impossible dream. For her final number, Emily performed "Standing Tall." The lyrics spoke directly to her experience with Leonard Hayes, about refusing to be silenced, about finding strength in adversity. She'd worried that the song might be too personal, too pointed, but the audience embraced it completely. As she sang the final chorus, "I'm standing tall, not backing down. You can't silence this voice, can't keep me on the ground," Emily saw people throughout the audience nodding along, some wiping tears. The song had transcended her personal story and become something universal. When she finished, the ovation lasted nearly a minute. Emily stood at the microphone, overwhelmed, trying to memorize every detail of this moment. She bowed, thanked the audience and the band, and walked off stage feeling like she was floating. Backstage, Linda was waiting with tears streaming down her face. They embraced tightly, and Emily finally let her own tears fall. "You were magnificent," Linda whispered. "Robert was here tonight. I felt him. He was here watching you." Other performers and Opry staff congratulated Emily as she made her way back to the dressing area. Margaret Chen appeared with a broad smile. "That was exceptional, Emily. We'd like to invite you back for a full performance in March. Would you be interested?" "Yes," Emily exclaimed without hesitation. "Absolutely, yes." As the showcase continued with the remaining performers, Emily allowed herself to simply exist in this moment of triumph. She'd proven herself on one of country music's most important stages. She'd connected with an audience through honest, authentic songwriting. She'd honored her father's memory and validated every sacrifice her mother had made. The next morning, reviews of the Opry showcase appeared in several publications. Emily's performance was singled out for particular praise. One critic wrote, "Emily Patterson brought a raw authenticity to the Ryman stage that's been missing from too much of modern country music. Her songwriting speaks to real struggles with poetic honesty, and her performance demonstrated both technical skill and emotional depth. This is an artist to watch." Russell Wade called to congratulate her and discuss accelerating the album recording schedule. "We need to capitalize on this momentum," he explained. "Let's get you in the studio after the holidays. The industry is paying attention now." But perhaps the most meaningful response came from an unexpected source. 3 days after the Opry performance, Emily received a handwritten letter addressed to her at Rosie's Diner. The return address was from Red Stiegel, the legendary musician and producer who had discovered Reba McEntire. Emily opened the envelope with trembling hands and read, "Dear Miss Patterson, I was in the audience at the Ryman for your Opry debut, and I wanted to write personally to tell you how impressed I was with your performance. In 50 years in this business, I've learned to recognize the difference between someone who can sing and someone who has something to say. You have something to say, and you say it with courage and skill. I've also been following the situation with Leonard Hayes. What you did, standing up to corruption and intimidation, took tremendous bravery. This industry needs more people like you, people who value integrity over convenience. If you're ever looking for guidance or support as you build your career, please don't hesitate to contact me. I believe you have a bright future ahead, and I'd be honored to help however I can. With respect and admiration, Red Stegall." Emily read the letter 3 times, hardly believing it was real. Red Stegall, a genuine legend, had not only attended her performance, but taken the time to write an encouraging letter. She carefully folded it and placed it in her guitar case, a talisman to remind her that the struggle had been worth it. The legal battle with Leonard Hayes continued, but Gregory Sullivan was confident they would prevail. Leonard's lawsuit was looking increasingly frivolous, especially as more artists came forward to support Claire Donovan's reporting. Some industry insiders were even predicting that Leonard might lose several of his major label contracts as companies distanced themselves from the controversy. Emily's life had changed radically in just over a month. She was still working at Rosie's Diner. She needed the income until the album was released and hopefully generating royalties. But now she was also a recognized artist with professional opportunities. The balance between her two worlds was challenging but manageable. Most importantly, she'd proven to herself that talent and integrity could triumph over intimidation and corruption. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. The music industry was still full of obstacles and challenges. But Emily now had allies, opportunities, and the confidence that came from standing up for what she believed in. As December approached, Emily focused on selecting songs for her Heartwood Records album and preparing for her return to the Opry in March. She wrote nearly every night, channeling her experiences into new compositions that reflected both the struggles and the victories of the past month. Reba's album was released in mid-December, with Desert Highway featured as the 3rd track. The song received significant radio play and critical acclaim, validating both Reba's artistry and Emily's contribution. The two women remained close friends, often meeting for coffee to share industry war stories and support each other through the challenges of building their careers. The battle with Leonard Hayes had scarred both of them, but it had also forged a bond that would last throughout their professional lives. They'd faced down a powerful adversary together and emerged stronger for it. January brought bitter cold to Nashville and the start of Emily Patterson's recording sessions at Heartwood Records. The converted warehouse studio was nothing like the slick facilities owned by major labels. The equipment was older, the space more cramped, and there was no catered lunch service. But to Emily, it was perfect. Russell Wade had assembled a team of session musicians who specialized in traditional country, veterans who could play with both technical precision and emotional authenticity. The steel guitar player, William Cross, had worked with George Jones and Merle Haggard. The bassist, Donna Reed, had been part of Loretta Lynn's touring band for 5 years. These weren't just skilled musicians. They were artists who understood the soul of country music. On the first day of recording, Emily arrived 2 hours early, too excited to stay home. She found Russell already in the control room, reviewing charts and preparing the console. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked with a knowing smile. "I've been waiting for this my whole life," Emily admitted. "Well, my whole adult life anyway. It doesn't feel real yet." "It's real. Russell assured her. "And we're going to make an album that matters, not just something that fills space on a shelf. These songs you've written, they deserve to be recorded properly, with respect for what they're trying to say." Over the next 3 weeks, they worked methodically through 12 songs Emily had selected for the album. Russell's production style was collaborative and patient, encouraging Emily to trust her instincts while offering guidance based on his decades of experience. When Emily second-guessed a vocal take, Russell would play it back and let her hear the emotion she'd captured. When she struggled with an arrangement, he'd bring in the session musicians to work through it together. Backroads and Broken Dreams was recorded in 2 takes. The first was technically perfect, but emotionally restrained. Russell recognized that Emily was holding back, trying to sound professional rather than letting herself be vulnerable. "Tell me about your father," Russell said gently, sitting beside Emily in the vocal booth. "Not for the recording, just for me. What do you want people to understand about him?" Emily talked for 10 minutes about Robert Patterson, his work ethic, his kindness, his unwavering support for her dreams even when money was tight. She remembered him coming home exhausted from construction sites, but still asking to hear her latest song. She remembered his calloused hands showing her guitar chords, his patient voice encouraging her to try again when she hit wrong notes. "That's what needs to be in your vocal," Russell said. "All of that love and loss and gratitude. Don't perform it, live it." The second take was raw and honest, Emily's voice cracking in places but carrying authentic emotion. When she finished, there was silence in the control room. Then William Cross's voice came through the talkback. "That's the take. Don't even think about doing another one." The recording process became more than just documenting songs. It was a masterclass in artistry. Emily learned how dynamics shaped emotional impact, how space between notes could be as important as the notes themselves, how vulnerability could be stronger than technical perfection. One afternoon, while taking a break between sessions, Donna Reed shared her own story of fighting for respect in a male-dominated industry. "When I started playing bass in 1965, club owners literally laughed at me. They said women couldn't keep time, couldn't handle the physical demands, couldn't hang with serious musicians. I had to be twice as good as any man just to get half the opportunities. But I kept showing up, kept playing, and eventually the music spoke louder than their prejudice." "How did you deal with the anger?" Emily asked. "The frustration of being judged unfairly?" "I put it in my playing," Donna answered. "Every time someone told me I didn't belong, I used that fire to push myself harder. And I looked for allies, people like Russell who valued talent over demographics." You're doing the same thing, Emily. You're building a network of people who believe in your music, and that's more valuable than any major label contract. The sessions continued through late January. Emily recorded "Standing Tall," which Russell suggested might be the album's title track. She recorded "Waiting Tables," "Chasing Dreams," and several new compositions including "Nashville Winter," a melancholy reflection on loneliness and determination in Music City. One song proved particularly challenging. "Second Chances" was about her mother's struggle to rebuild life after losing her husband, and Emily found herself emotionally overwhelmed every time she tried to sing it. After 4 failed takes, she asked for a break and called Linda from the studio phone. "Mom, I'm trying to record the song about you and Dad, and I can't get through it without breaking down. How do you handle thinking about him? How do you stay strong?" Linda was quiet for a moment. "I don't stay strong, sweetheart. I just keep going. Some days are harder than others, but I wake up and put one foot in front of the other, because that's what he would have wanted, and because you need me to. Recording a song about your father, about us, that's not something you should do with a stiff upper lip. Let yourself feel it. He deserves to be mourned and celebrated, not held at arm's length. Emily went back into the vocal booth with tears already streaming down her face. She didn't try to control her emotions. She let them flow through the performance. Her voice wavered and broke, but it carried truth. When she finished, Russell's voice came through the speaker. That's it. That's the one. By mid-February, the album was complete. Russell scheduled a playback session where Emily heard all 12 songs in sequence for the first time. Sitting in the control room with the session musicians, she listened to what they'd created. A cohesive statement about struggle, resilience, loss, and hope. "This is real country music," William Cross said when the final track ended. "Not the watered-down pop stuff they're pushing on the radio. This is the genuine article." Russell scheduled the album's release for April, giving them time to press vinyl and cassettes and plan promotion. The title was Standing Tall, Emily Patterson, with a simple cover photo of Emily holding her guitar against a Nashville brick wall. Meanwhile, Emily's legal battle with Leonard Hayes was moving toward resolution. Gregory Sullivan had filed a motion to dismiss, arguing that Leonard's defamation lawsuit lacked merit, given the substantial truth of Claire Donovan's reporting. 3 judges had reviewed the evidence, and in early February, the case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning Leonard couldn't refile. Furthermore, Leonard faced his own legal troubles. The Nashville District Attorney's Office had opened an investigation into possible contract fraud and intimidation tactics, prompted by the overwhelming testimony from artists and industry workers. Leonard's influence was crumbling as labels and studios severed ties with him. Claire Donovan wrote a follow-up article documenting Leonard's fall from power. She quoted Emily, "I didn't speak out to destroy anyone's career. I spoke out because silence enables abuse. The industry is better when artists can create without fear of retaliation, when honesty is valued over obedience." Reba called to congratulate Emily on the lawsuit dismissal. "You did it. You actually took him down." "We did it," Emily corrected. "None of this would have happened if you hadn't been willing to sing your own song that night at WKDF. We started this together." Reba's album was performing well on the country charts, and Mercury Records had greenlit a tour for spring. She asked if Emily might be interested in being an opening act for some of the Tennessee dates. "Are you kidding?" Emily exclaimed. "Yes, absolutely yes." The touring opportunity would coincide with Emily's album release, providing perfect exposure for her debut. Russell Wade negotiated the details with Reba's management, and suddenly Emily had a concrete plan: release the album in April, tour with Reba through May, and perform at the Opry again in March to build anticipation. Her March Opry performance drew an even larger crowd than the November showcase. Word had spread about Emily's Heartwood Records deal and her role in the Leonard Hayes exposé. People were curious about this young artist who'd stood up to corruption and emerged victorious. Emily performed 4 songs this time, including 2 from the upcoming album. The audience response was enthusiastic and warm. Afterwards, several industry representatives approached her about future opportunities: festival performances, radio interviews, songwriting collaborations. One conversation particularly stood out. A producer named Thomas Wright, who worked with several established country artists, asked if Emily might be interested in writing songs for other performers. "Your compositions have a narrative strength that's rare these days," Thomas explained. "I have 3 artists looking for material that sounds authentic, that tells real stories. Would you consider pitching them some songs?" Emily hadn't thought about writing for other artists, but the idea intrigued her. "I'd need to keep my best material for my own albums," she stipulated. "But if I write something that's a better fit for someone else's voice, I'm open to it." They exchanged contact information, and Emily added professional songwriter to her growing list of roles. She was becoming a multifaceted artist, Not just a performer, but a creator whose work had value beyond her own recordings. April arrived with warming weather and blooming dogwoods. Heartwood Records released Standing Tall in independent record stores across Tennessee, Kentucky, and surrounding states. Russell arranged for Emily to do in-store performances and signings, building grassroots support. The reception exceeded expectations. Fans bought albums and waited in line for Emily to autograph the covers. Radio stations that specialized in traditional country added several tracks to their playlists. Music critics praised the album's authenticity and Emily's songwriting skill. One review in the Tennessean called it a refreshing reminder of what country music can be when artists prioritize honesty over commercial calculation. Emily Patterson has announced herself as a voice worth listening to. Sales were modest compared to major label releases, but Russell was thrilled. For an independent debut from an unknown artist, these numbers are exceptional. We're already recouping production costs. If this momentum continues, you'll earn royalties by summer. The touring dates with Reba began in early May. Emily performed 30-minute opening sets in venues across Tennessee, introducing her music to audiences who came to see Reba but stayed impressed by Emily's talent. Night after night, she refined her stage presence, learned to read audiences, and grew more confident in her ability to command a room. Reba was generous both on stage and off, frequently praising Emily during her own sets and encouraging fans to support the younger artist. Their friendship deepened through long bus rides between cities, late-night conversations about the industry, and mutual support through the challenges of touring life. One evening, after a show in Knoxville, they sat outside the tour bus watching the sun set over the Smoky Mountains. Reba turned to Emily with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever think about that night at WKDF? How different our lives might be if you hadn't walked on stage with your guitar?" Emily considered the question. "All the time. If the band hadn't walked out, if I'd been too scared to help you, if Leonard had successfully intimidated us into silence, everything would be different. I think we would have found each other eventually," Reba said. "Maybe not that night, maybe not that way. But people who refuse to compromise their art tend to recognize each other. We were always going to be allies." "You really believe that?" "I do. The music industry tries to separate us, to make us compete instead of collaborate. But the best moments in my career so far have come from working with people who share my values. You, Red Steagall, the musicians who believe in what I'm trying to do. That's the secret they don't want us to know. We're stronger together." The tour concluded in late May with a performance at the Ryman Auditorium, a full concert rather than a showcase. Emily opened for Reba in front of a sold-out crowd, performing songs from Standing Tall and receiving a standing ovation. When Reba took the stage, she invited Emily back for a duet of Desert Highway, the song that had started everything. Singing together on the Ryman stage, harmonizing in front of hundreds of fans, Emily felt the journey come full circle. 6 months ago, she'd been a waitress with impossible dreams. Now she was a recording artist, a touring performer, a respected songwriter, and a friend to one of country music's rising stars. After the show, Linda Patterson was backstage with tears in her eyes. "Your father would be so proud," she said, for what must have been the 100th time since this journey began. "I'm so proud." Emily hugged her mother tightly. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Mom. You kept believing when I wanted to give up. You worked extra hours so I could have a guitar, a bus ticket to Nashville, a chance. This success belongs to both of us." In June, Thomas Wright called with a proposal. One of his artists, an established singer named Beverly Mason, wanted to record Waiting Tables, Chasing Dreams for her next album. They were offering Emily a publishing deal and writer's royalties. "It's your first cut as a songwriter," Thomas explained. "Beverly has real chart potential. If her version becomes a hit, it could open doors for you as a professional writer." Emily thought about the song, about how personal it was to her own experience. But she also recognized that the theme was universal. Anyone who'd worked difficult jobs while chasing dreams could relate. And having Beverly Mason record it would introduce Emily's songwriting to a much wider audience. "Let's do it," Emily agreed. The summer unfolded with continued opportunities. Emily performed at several festivals, did radio interviews, and wrote prolifically, both for her own future albums and for other artists through Thomas Wright's network. Standing Tall continued selling steadily, and Russell began planning for a second album to be recorded in the fall. In August, the Nashville District Attorney's Office announced indictments against Leonard Hayes for fraud and criminal intimidation. The charges stemmed from contracts he'd manipulated and artists he'd threatened. While Emily took no pleasure in his legal troubles, she felt vindicated knowing that speaking out had led to real accountability. Claire Donovan won a journalism award for her investigative reporting on music industry corruption, and she credited Emily and the other sources who'd been brave enough to go on record. At the awards ceremony, Claire publicly thanked Emily for her courage. One evening in September, Emily sat on the back porch of the house she'd recently rented, a small place near Music Row, affordable thanks to her growing income from album sales, touring, and songwriting royalties. She could finally support herself through music, could ease the financial burden on her mother, could invest in equipment and opportunities that would further her career. She thought about the journey from that November morning at WKDF to this September evening. So much had changed, yet the core remained the same. She was still the girl who loved writing songs, who believed in honesty over commercial calculation, who refused to let anyone silence her voice. Her phone rang. It was Daniel Foster. "Em, are you sitting down? I just got off the phone with Margaret Chen at the Opry." "What about?" "They want to invite you to become a member of the Grand Ole Opry. An official member, Emily. Do you understand what that means?" Emily's breath caught. Opry membership was country music's highest honor, reserved for artists who'd made significant contributions to the genre. Most performers spent decades building careers before receiving such recognition. She'd been a professional artist for less than a year. "Are you sure? There must be some mistake." "No mistake. They're recognizing not just your talent, but what you represent. Authentic country music, artistic integrity, courage to stand up for what's right. The formal invitation will come next week, but I wanted you to hear it from me first." After hanging up, Emily sat in stunned silence, watching the Nashville lights begin to glow against the darkening sky. Grand Ole Opry member, recording artist, professional songwriter, advocate for industry reform. She'd become all these things by staying true to herself, by refusing to compromise, by being brave when it mattered most. She picked up her guitar, the same instrument her father had bought her years ago, and began playing softly. A new song was forming, lyrics about the journey from struggle to success, about staying authentic in an industry that often rewarded conformity, about the people who'd supported her along the way. The music flowed naturally, honestly, carrying the weight of experience and the lightness of hope. This was why she wrote, why she performed, why she'd risked everything to help Reba sing her own song that November night. Not for fame or money, but for moments like this, when music captured truth, when artistry mattered more than commerce, when a girl from a working-class background could stand tall and make her voice heard. Emily Patterson's journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new obstacles, new battles to fight, but she'd proven to herself and to the industry that talent, integrity, and courage could triumph over intimidation and corruption. As she played her guitar on that September evening, developing the song that would eventually become the title track of her second album, Emily felt her father's presence, not as grief, but as inspiration. Robert Patterson had taught her that honest work and honest music required the same dedication. She was honoring that lesson every day, building a career on authenticity rather than compromise. The Nashville night deepened around her, full of possibility and promise. Emily Patterson had found her voice, and nothing would silence it again.